Hello, hello. How is everybody? How are you doing? It's been a while. I know. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm moving my table. So, hopefully, everybody's doing well. I have been crazy busy. I apologize for that. So, we will let people hop on and we will get started and go from there. So, if you are hopping on and you are new to catching me live, new to the page, definitely join the group if you are new. So just put in the search bar Autism Mama Rocks IEP group and join the group. I know a lot of people have been doing that are here on the page. And I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about changing things up, IEP meetings, getting down in the dumps about something not working in an IEP meeting. Don't get me wrong, I do too. If I'm advocating and like something doesn't work out the way I really wanted it to, but does that mean I give up? No. Okay, so persistence is key. So let me start with who I am. So my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. So if you are new, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You guys know what to do. All right. So again, a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Tell us where you're from. And even if you're an oldie but goodie, make sure you tell us where you're from. All right. You can say, anything about your kiddos, if they have autism or a speech language impairment, whatever the case may be, hopefully the goal is to, as parents, caregivers, grandparents, is to support one another. I think that's the best thing that we can do, not judge and, really embrace one another and know that we're not walking in anybody else's shoes but our own, and go from there. Hi, Missy. How are you? So what I want to talk to you about is the fact that, I've done 293 IEPs to date this year. All right. And it's crazy. And I've just kind of looked back, and especially on recent ones. And some of them, I'm going to admit, some of them have worked out amazing, just like this morning, one that I just got out of. And then others, not so much how I wanted it to. I was in an IEP the other day that was, the mom explained it like this, okay? Raven, it was like watching a movie because the entertainment was crazy and off the chain. So when I go edit with a school system, it's one of those things where I've always said to you guys, I have a different approach. Some may call it holy hell. She is abrasive. Some most 99.9999% hire me because of that. All right. The meeting I was just in, she had 2 other advocates before me, and one didn't do anything from her. This is what she told me. One didn't do anything from her. The other one had a lot of criticizing words, like you're getting too many services. You need to just accept that your child's 2-3 years behind, things like that. And that's not something you want to hear from an advocate. Another red flag the mom said is she's never pissed anybody off. So I laugh, of course, because I don't go into an IEP meeting without pissing somebody off. Never. I'm laughing because it went to show how accurate I am at the fact that, I recognize that. But I'm okay with it. I am, because people don't hire advocates because everything's going wonderful. People hire advocates or attorneys because things are not going wonderful, or parents are realizing more and more that something's not right and now going with their gut, which I admire you for. And, so I just found that kind of amusing. I thought I'd share that with you because, she had an advocate say she's never pissed anybody off. And I'm like, dear Lord, I piss everybody off. So, I mean, I don't think I could ever say, I piss people off in the real world, let alone, in an IEP. I think it's because I'm just pretty frank and I just keep it real. And I guess that can come off, I can hurt people's feelings, but I don't try to. That's not my intention. But if you're going to ask me if your dress looks nice and you're expecting me to say, yeah, you look beautiful, and I really think it looks like crap, I'm going to tell you it looks like crap. That's just who I am, But anyway, you guys don't want to hear about that, all right? Even though you guys always crack up at it, I just figured I'd throw that out there as, something funny for y'all. So let's talk about this. So meetings do not go how you want them all the time. They're not going to go how you want them all the time. And you can't expect them to go how you want them all the time. All right. The other meeting I was talking about the other day that didn't go how I wanted it was an IEP. We got this child out. We got this child everything that they wanted, everything that they needed, except ESY. This was my first meeting. And this is where, I'm very transparent about things because I'm sitting here talking about ESY all the time this year. I've never, ever, ever not gotten a child ESY. And the mom was saying too that they were rushing at the end. Like we had gone past our time. And I always ask for 3 hours. And so like she was pushing it off. And so we don't know if it's because we got everything we wanted and then she was just like, no, or if she was just in a rush and just said no. But either way, it's like, we got reading program, Wilson in the IEP, which is aligned with the science of reading. It's, structured literacy, just like, Orton Gillingham, very aligned with each other. And the fact they're going to put it in the IEP and, all these things, and then no to ESY because because they were in a hurry or something, because there's no way that they can say that they don't qualify. So now we're going back after them, and an approach to say, all right, come on guys, we're going to give you one last shot, because you're wrong and wrong in every way, shape or form. We understand that you were, ready to get out of that meeting, but, and I know you had to suck up the fact that you gave us everything we wanted. You mean everything that the child needed? Yes, you gave the child everything they needed. Thank you very much. But yeah, so we're going back after that. But the fact that we got the child everything they wanted other than that just pissed me off. So then the fact that I have 2 requests for mediations and 3 due process cases going on, and I'm exhausted, and it's exhausting. And writing the requests for due process, I'm very detailed. Let me see, I'm on page, and I have 4 more to go. Please help me. I'm on page 23 so far, and it just, I'm just very detailed and kind of a perfectionist, and I go back and reread it, and it's a lot. So bottom line, always be okay with the fact that you're going to have to be persistent, try and try again. If you know that you're right and your child deserves X, Y, and Z, whether that be 2-3 times a week speech, whether that be, more OT, whether that be direct instruction and reading, be careful with that verbiage, because direct instruction can mean 2 things. It can mean, direct instruction is in how maybe you and I think about it, which is 1-to-1, or it can be up to 5 children. All right. So if you look up direct instruction, it will say, small group. So if you want 1-to-1, you need to say direct instruction 1-to-1, not just direct instruction in your IEP, because then they have the ability to then do group. And, you have to be able to move forward. All right. It doesn't work the way you want it to work. Does life always? No. So you have to just be persistent, just like in life, if something doesn't work out, what do? You try again, or you do it differently the next time, or, you just change it up. You don't want to get into this, which a lot of people do, is you don't want to get into this rut of, okay, I give up. Done. I can't do it anymore. I just can't, and that's where a lot of parents will get and say, I can't do it anymore. I don't got the energy. I have other kids. I just can't fight the fight anymore. I'm done, and I get parents like that all the time. And, I have to say, it is worth the fight because, you have to look at your child's educational career. How much longer you got to go? Do you really want them controlling you for another 6 years, for another 4 years? Shoot, another 3 years. All right. You don't want that going on. All right. Now, in these 3 IEPs, maybe it was 2, 3, 2. It's 2 or 3. All right. 2 attorneys were in these meetings. Yeah, attorneys were in those meetings. And nasty. And what sucks about this is, number one, I'm not going to put up with their shit. Not happening. All right. So call it as you want, but I'm not putting up with their shit. All right. So I'm just not. All right. And it causes a lot of issues when attorneys are in IEP meetings. Okay. It goes back to OSEP. And what Hillary Clinton even said, some of you may like her, some of you may not. I don't care, but what she said made sense. All right. And, she wrote a letter in reference to this as well, along with OSEP, has made this comment, along with, the ethics within the bar also supports this. It's not allowed. It is. But what they're doing in IEPs is not right and isn't really allowed, but they do it anyway because they don't care. And what that is they feel like attorneys come into play when school systems have done wrong. All right. It's 2, by the way, not 3. So case number 1. Case number 1 is a nonverbal student who was never given an AAC device. They had an assistive technology evaluation in 2018. They were given in the IEP to use. It was put into the IEP to use an AAC device. They'd never provided the parent with an AAC device. The parent had to buy it themselves because they didn't know that they were allowed to receive it from the school. The school didn't even tell them, okay, we're going to order it, et cetera, et cetera. They have to order it. They have to provide it for your child. They have to get the whole system. They have to make sure it's needed, appropriate, and, fully functional. You have a nonverbal student now in school that, in a limited, trivial way, can use the AAC device. No one's ever been trained. I could go on and on. Okay. They need a 1-to-1 for safety because the child's 3 times in a row in sync, been hurt, major bruises, and the school system is now denying what has happened. All right. And what happens, if you will. So now there's safety going on. There is distrust, complete distrust and breakdown of the team, and when you have that distrust, that causes a lot of problems. Then you have a student who cannot communicate in school. Their voice is taken away because she's frustrated because she can't use her AAC device to the fullest extent because she does not know how. And the teacher's asking mom how to use the AAC device because nobody's been trained. Mom has taught herself, but still doesn't know fully what the AAC device can do. And so it's become a big problem. But the school systems thinks they're innocent and they've done nothing wrong. And they send me this PWN of, offer of FAPE. And of course I do what I do. I download their little PDF file, put it into Adobe, export it into a doc, and I respond in red underneath each and everything. And, I've gotten to the point where I'm not nice about it. I don't have tolerance for it anymore. Because if you're going to put into a PWN or an email, just complete BS, and you're going to BS me as to what was said, what transpired, etc., then everything's on the table at that point, you know? And, you know, one thing that happened with this attorney was she was so trying to run the show, things got heightened. I don't allow that. So I don't react until you do something that is inappropriate, and then I'm going to react. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. And so then for twice, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Then mom gets really mad. And, but we didn't have that dynamic before the attorney came in. The reason the attorney came in is because the school system wanted to cover their ass because the child had gone home with a major bruise and knew we were on to them with that. And so the attorney wouldn't have come in other than I was on them with that, and I had sent a pretty impactful email. And then all of a sudden, the attorney comes into play. And then the IEP goes to shit because the attorney wants to control the situation when she doesn't even know the child. She's not knowledgeable in the child, but yet thinks she can run the show, which is not happening. And so, you know, then the attorney herself wants to then put herself in a position where she is now violating IDEA as the representation of the school. Makes no sense. How are you a decent attorney if you're advising and doing yourself procedural violations and then trying to cover them up? It doesn't make sense at all. And knowing that it's a recorded conversation, an IEP. No sense at all. None. Case 2. The next one is frustrating in itself because we have another nonverbal student. All right. And this student, and I'm going to get back to you, Tiffany, has never had an AAC evaluation at all. Parents have bought an app that, you know, is used and implemented, but it's not a system that is known or I've never heard of it. You know, it's not something that has, you know, the best system in my opinion for an AAC device is TouchChat. Hands down, the best program ever. You can have it on your computer. You can have it on their iPad. They should be able to come to and from school. They have really good customer service. Excellent program that can go into the system and the iPads or tablet. But, you know, it's frustrating because how do you not give a nonverbal child an AT evaluation? And how do you not give them an AAC device? And the parents, again, have to download an app that they don't really know a whole lot about and didn't even know that the school system was supposed to provide an AT evaluation. And then, you know, both of these students are struggling to read, are struggling, you know, to do anything and behind because they're not supported. It makes no sense at all. And these school systems think that they're doing the right thing. And you want to send me a PWN that says an offer of FAPE. You don't even know what I have to say. You guys know that I will just spit at the mouth, but you do not want to know what I have to say about that because it just pisses me off. How do you not give a nonverbal child not only an assistive technology evaluation, one more thing. Neither have had training. So the assistive technology person that's within the school, all schools should have one. If not, they should be contracting out. Their job is to train the staff and all people that work with that child with the assistive technology device. If you don't know how to use the damn system, what's the point in having it? Makes no sense. None. Zero. So it's like, okay, you just basically are saying, this is how I'm digesting it. Tell me it's wrong. All right. And I see that you guys are commenting. I got you. And then I got to jump off here because I've got to get to writing these things, but I wanted to come live about this. You know, is it wrong of me to think that the school systems are basically saying, hey, you kiddos that cannot talk, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you a voice here at school. You have no voice. You have no way of talking. You have no way of communicating. You have no way of communicating the fact that you are learning something or not learning something. How are the schools measuring any data? But you want to provide me data and you want me to believe what it is that you're providing me, but yet you're inhibiting the child's ability to speak? I'm sorry. Tell me again. What am I missing here? It makes no sense to me. No sense. You know, and the thing is I never go after something that is above and beyond. Any of my clients that I work with will tell you that I will say, not happening, you know? But if it's something that is needed and appropriate for them, all my due process cases, Dana, are in frickin' Texas. Houston. Houston can kiss my butt right now. And 2 of them are at the same school district, so they really love me. And that same district is one of the 2 that I'm talking about right now. Something else. You know, another state that I'm getting a lot of calls from is Massachusetts. What the heck is happening there? And that's a new state for me. So I'm like, what is going on in Massachusetts right now? You know? So and I told you guys, I don't know how to say no. So I've got, you know, I thought I was going to have a lot of time off this summer. Not happening. All right. People are like, can you please take my case? I know that, you know, nothing's going to really happen until summer, but I know you can review it. I know you can go over it with me, that I'm fully fluent. And then, you know, we can, you know, go for the evaluations and stuff like that, you know, in the fall and, you know, that sort of thing, and things get going. The other thing that parents are, you know, what is really cool, that I'm very surprised that a couple school systems have like really taken my advice with this. I think because they have so many that they're like, yeah, we'll do it. And they're doing the evaluations, because I always ask for an evaluation. If it's been a year, you're getting an evaluation, full evaluation. I mean, every darn taster. I tell the school, okay, fine. If you don't want to do this evaluation, we're going to ask for an IEE because we don't trust you. So then they'll do the whole evaluation. Stupid idiots. They should have just done it all at the same time. Why do I got to threaten you for you to do something? Just do it. What's an extra evaluation going to do? You already have it. It's not extra money out of your pocket. And, you know, and talking about money, they're getting millions of stimulus dollars to spend on our children where they're spending it elsewhere, okay, instead of where it was allotted. All right? Let's not get into that conversation. So they're doing the evaluations over the summer, which is so cool, because think about it. You have ESY, so you have speech, and you have OT, and you have a psychologist on board, and you have all these people on board for the summer. So why not do the evaluation then? And then the only thing we're holding off on is students that need, students that need FBAs. Then I'm saying, you know, let's start that around the 45th day of school, because you want them to acclimate and you want a good read and you want a good evaluation there. So that one I am saying should start, you know, within 45 days of the start of school. But, you know, I'm glad they're coming around like that. I'm glad they're open to that. You know, the meeting I was in now, Mom, is one that was very upset when she came to me. She had, like I said, she had 2 other advocates before me. And, you know, she had a hard time trusting, which totally makes sense. I get it. You know, because nothing had happened, transpired, you know, people weren't working with her. And, you know, her daughter has a lot of behavior issues. And, you know, she is 2 years behind in reading, where this is a school district actually in my state, literally only up the road. And so, you know, that meeting went really well. It was breath of fresh air. You know, Mom was like, I think they were intimidated. I think that I don't know why people feel that way. I think that's their own problem, not mine. I can't make you feel intimidated. You either can hold your own or you can't, but I don't make you feel intimidated. You either choose to or you choose not to, but I can't control the way you feel, just like you can't control the way I feel. So if you felt a certain way, or because you're being challenged, that you're being asked questions that you're uncomfortable to answer, then not my problem. All right. I did ask the speech therapist today. She kept saying, oh, I said, where's the data? I'm like curious. The student has, some speech concerns, but she's only getting, 2 hours a month. This is a child that can speak, but she still has some deficits. And I said, where is the data? She's like, well, it's in the progress report. No, you mean your couple sentences and that it's satisfactory or something? Like, no, where's the data? Well, it's in the present levels. Okay, show me. So that's what I said. So she flips, they share the screen, she's showing me the present levels, and you have the percentages, you have what the goal is. Oh, the child has to do X, Y, Z, and, at 94% accuracy, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, yeah, I saw that. Where's the data? And she just like, stop. So maybe we need a refresher course for service providers and teachers, and this is coming from the heart, because parents are getting smart, and you guys do not want to be at a loss for words. And I'm thinking about this. I'm contemplating this in doing a class, just a class, like a one-day class or something, that will be recorded, in teaching teachers and service providers how to, number one, write goals and present levels, but also how to take proper data, that when these parents like you get smart, well, they're already smart, but they're getting smart with the IEP, that you guys know how to respond appropriately, because there are expectations, and if you don't live up to those expectations, then there's a breakdown of trust. And teams don't work very well when there's a breakdown of trust. All right? So you have to come together as a team to establish a relationship. And if you can't come together as a team, like these two attorneys completely tore apart, because again, Raven does not react until there is something that comes at me. Now, you want to throw BS at me, you want to try to control a situation of time and how long someone talks and, this, that, the other. No, it won't happen in an IEP. You want to table it? Table it. Fine. We will come back to the table. You want to waste your time and mine and everybody else's because you want to table it because you want to have control? Fine. Let's do it. But at the same time, think about it. It doesn't make sense for them. No sweat off my back. No sweat off the parents' back. Now, is it a pain in the butt to have to go back to the table? Yeah. But if they're going to table the meeting because they want to have control, and you don't, and you give in and say, no, don't want to table it. No, please don't do that. Please. Okay, let's get along. Then what happens? They keep controlling you. They keep doing what they're doing. They keep, they just keep doing what they're doing. So there comes a time, I was really bad with my son when it came to sticking to my guns. This is how bad I was. Sky, I'm the same way with Sky too. My oldest, I was strict. Then my son comes along, and if I grounded him, he finally got to the point where he would tell people, give her a couple hours, she'll give me my phone back. Oh yeah, he would say that. And it was true. I would give in because he would make me feel guilty. It's pretty bad. But, and then he's a lot like me, and he knew how to talk his way out of getting his phone taken. And I thought that was genius. So I gave him his phone back because I'm like, shoot, if you're smart enough to talk your way out of being punished because what you said made sense, okay, I'll give you that. And Sky too. She knows that if she's cute and says, sorry, mom, I'm sorry, I won't throw a fit no more. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I will never do it again. I mean, every time she throws a fit, which is every day for like about 5 minutes in her room, I'm so sorry. I will never do it again. I will never do it again. I'm so sorry. And I mean, you can't help but like, okay, that's kind of cute, and you give in. But, with the school systems, all right, you guys have got to stay consistent. It didn't work with them. They get their stuff back. All right. It doesn't work. They're like, oh, whatever. Mom grounded me. I'll have it back in an hour. All right. So same thing with the schools. All right. It didn't work. They kept doing it. Sky still throws fits. My son still did what he did. They just knew they were getting their stuff back in 30 minutes or an hour, And so I had to learn to not give in. So the minute I stopped giving in, the minute, not Sky, because she can't control having a fit, but Justin, the minute he realized I was sticking to my guns, do you know what came out of his mouth? That's not fair. What's up with that? You used to give it back to me in an hour. You used to give it back to me in 2 hours. How come you're acting like that? You're mean. That is not okay. And he would have an attitude and really act out. And as he got older, it was really bad, in the sense like he'd say his certain piece. And because he's a little bit like his mother. He's the one that is a lot like me. And he didn't like it because I changed it up. I no longer gave in. Sky too. She'll throw her fit. I can't control that. But, with her phone, she was grounded for 3 weeks once. And she understood. Every day she would say, Mom, I get my phone back May 1st. She actually got her phone back May 1st, this past May. I get my phone back May 1st. I get my phone back. I promise I will never do it again, And she knew that she was grounded, because I stuck to what I did. But you know what? She hasn't done it again. It stuck, that, okay, Mom is not playing anymore. And so the same thing with the schools. All right. If you give in, even though it's a pain in the butt that you gotta, because that's what they threaten. They know it's a pain in your butt. I'm going to table the meeting. And you know what I say every time? Do what you got to do. And then they ask the parent. It's the funniest crap. Happens the same way every time. All right. They'll say, we're going to table the meeting if you keep being combative. And I say the only reason I'm being combative is because you're doing this, and this. I'm not tolerating that. If you stop doing that, then I will stop doing what I'm doing. But it goes both ways. But every single time that they say, oh, well, we're going to table the meeting. Do what you got to do. I never say anything different. Do what you got to do. Because guess what? You don't have a choice but to come back to the table. And so we can do it again. And we can do it again. And we can do it again. And we can do it again. But you're coming back to the table. And you can't deny a parent's right to come back to the table. So you can waste your time doing that because we all know you love to do that. Than to just stick it out. But if you want to table the meeting, by all means. Because you can't be challenged, that you're so weak that you have no answers and somebody's actually challenging you for a change. Thank God parents are challenging the school systems. And you are addressing things that should have probably been addressed forever ago and we just didn't know better. I know that was, in my case, that's what happened, So make sure that you are not afraid to challenge. And I know like this parent that I just got an IEP meeting with, she was like, I would have not known those questions to ask. She's like, I don't know. They say something, you immediately come back with something. And I don't know how to do that, And that's normal, okay? And I did not immediately have that either. Sometimes I was just silent because I didn't know what to say. I know that's surprising. I know. Surprising. Raven was silent. I get it. I get you're in shock, but I really didn't. I had nothing to say because I didn't know what to say to that. All right. And so certain things that they said in my IEP meetings. No. Okay. Let me see what y'all are saying. Hold on. All right. Let me scroll up. I think Davinia asked the first question. So she's from California. Indiana is Missy and her nonverbal granddaughter. Caregiver, still potty training. How old is she? And then we have Anna from Minnesota. We have Christina. We have Dana and Stephanie. And Davinia says, hi, signed retention paperwork for my son to continue kindergarten. I'm afraid I might have made a mistake. Do you know if there's any way to back out of this decision? Yeah, you can. I'm in California. IEP is for OHI, selective mutism, ADHD. Well, mutism would be under speech as well. So I would definitely have your child evaluated on the outside as well for a speech and language impairment. Even though it's selective, I would get to the bottom of it and find out like the why. You know what I mean? It could be selective where they just choose not to. Okay, so sorry, I'm not talking to you. But find out why. I would want to find out why, you know? Since March 2020, our district put all kindergarten students on independent study. What the heck is that? Independent study? How does a 5-year-old have independent study? Hey, kiddo, you're 5. You know, you like to play, hang out. You're just learning the alphabet. Probably don't know how to tie your shoes yet. But here's your work. Have at it. Is that what that is? Is that what independent study is? Because how I look at that like, here you go. Here's your work. Have fun. Turn it in on Tuesday. That's crazy. Debbie says better to retain early on, in my opinion. Yes, I held Skylar back in kindergarten. But also, you know, I actually had this conversation with this parent today. All right. And thank you for sharing, Erin. And hold on real quick. Anna says, I'm currently fighting the school to get assistive tech and FM system for my daughter who has an auditory processing disorder. School audiologist is fighting this even though diagnosis audiologist recommended this. I've been fighting for 6 months now into 7th. Can your child talk? Like why? Just because I will say, okay, that just because she has an auditory processing disorder doesn't mean she needs an AT device or AAC. It's an AAC device, AT evaluation. So I will say that not always does a child who has auditory processing, because that's a processing issue. That is not a speech issue. That is not a communication issue. Now, it could affect speech in the fact that what is being processed cannot then come out. So the receptive and expressive language. So if that's how it's affecting the child, then that's different. So if the child is, you know, nonverbal or having a lot of issues due to the fact that expressive and receptive, so they're receiving the information and then the information is not processing appropriately within the brain, and then it is unable to then get out, okay? But here's the kicker, is a AAC device may not help. I'm not saying it can't. What I'm saying is you have to, I'm just curious what the dynamic is there and what the background is, because if you look at it like this, so for example, if what's being taken in cannot come out, it's not going to come out on an AAC device either. Do you know what I mean? So that's not saying your child doesn't need an AAC device. I'm just saying that I'm just playing devil's advocate here. All right. That I would need to know the background to even, you know, tell you, oh yeah, they need to have this, that, and the other. But I'm just playing devil's advocate in the sense that, you know, just because a child has a auditory processing disorder doesn't guarantee them an assistive technology device. Okay? Just because it's not, things aren't processing in the brain. So I just wanted to put that out there. But I do get the fact that if it's not processing in the brain, what's happening is what is being received isn't going anywhere. So it's, you know what I mean? It's going in, staying there, unable to come out. Okay? And so when something's unable to come out, then an AAC device could come into play, but they have to be able to process that information to be able to get it out of their mouth or on an AAC device. Do you know what I'm saying? So you have to address the processing, not anything else, until the processing is there. So talk to a speech therapist, audiologist, etc., which I see, the point, but I'm going into this because you got to address the processing. All right? That's the problem. And then what are you going to do to support the problem? And what are you going to do to make the problem better? Okay, so for example, with working memory, there's different exercises that can be done. There's different things that can be worked on. There's so many different things that you can put into play. Same thing with auditory processing. Now, there are auditory processing disorders where it's a little bit different. It's kind of like, unfortunately, like cancer. All right, there's different types of cancers. They do different types of things within your body. They react differently, happen differently. How it's handled is differently, all of that kind of stuff. Same thing with auditory processing disorder. All right, so one child could have it in one area of how it's affecting them, and another child can have it in a totally different area how it's affecting them. All right. So a lot of kids with autism and even ADHD have a lot of processing issues. That doesn't make it an auditory processing issue, but it makes it a processing issue in whole. Okay, so for example, if you ask a child, typically, not always, obviously, of a child with, let's just say, autism or ADHD. Well, ADHD, their mind is going a mile a minute. All right, and so if their mind's going a mile a minute, it's just common sense to realize that if something's going into that brain and into that child's mind, that because their mind's already running a mile a minute, it's not all going to be processed, but it doesn't mean the child can't process it. The child has to just learn how to calm the brain in order to process the information. All right. Same thing with autism, where it's a little bit different because sometimes it's not processing, or sometimes if you have noticed some children with autism, it takes them a hot minute to process it. So they will get it, but it may take 5 minutes, So everybody's different, So find out, that is my biggest thing, guys, with things that are going on with your kids is, and I'm going on about this because there's a reason for it. The reason is you got to dig deep and find out what is the problem and what do I need to do to solve the problem, which will solve all this other stuff up here. All right. So there's surface problems that you most likely see. And then there's the real problem that no one seems to go to. All right. And you got to address the real problem to be able to get rid of all of this. All right. So that's important to know. All right. And, getting to the bottom of it. Then when you get to the bottom of it, then it's a problem solving thing. All right. And then you have more data, Anna, to then support your argument. Okay. So, Davinia, have you asked for a CIF technology assessment in writing? Okay. So she's talking to Anna. Hey, Susan, how are you? Hey, Nadia. Yeah, insane, guys. I know. Hi, Bill. How are you? Nadia says, haha, that's my problem with my kids. Yeah. All right. No, I have been asking for a personal remote microphone, aka FM. I've actually not ever heard of that before. I'm going to have to look that up. I don't even know what that is. A microphone, aka FM system. I have no idea what that is. You're going to have to message me something about that. That's interesting. Dana says, as a parent, I never knew the right words to say, and then I learned, still didn't have the courage. Having an advocate has been life-changing. Bibi says, hello. Davinia says he has autism as well. We were given weekly packets. We do get speech services through insurance and school IEP. He's 100% nonverbal in both settings. Okay. Also, he just got the A's. Oh, good. Anna says, yes, she can talk, but she has a hard time understanding things without amplification. So is it a hearing issue? Bill says the things we didn't know before Raven is mind numbing. She is verbal but can't comprehend what she hears without okay. I asked the school staff to be trained. Oh yeah. My kid knows information. Generally, he doesn't want to blast it out, but yeah. Okay. So that's just important, guys, is to be mindful, of the things that go on in IEP meetings, understanding that, changing it up sometimes is a good thing. I was very open today. The school system was very open today. They were not, they didn't have attitudes. They were very calm. They were workable or able, is that the right word? I was able to work with them, That doesn't mean they agreed with everything I said, What it was we had a conversation and I listened to them, they listened to me. Where in certain IEPs, it's like I have to get loud and I feel like I have to get completely nasty for them to hear anything because they're so busy thinking no, 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 and not thinking about the student that or having control, or it's like this power struggle that is so not sexy. Okay? And power struggles are completely irresponsible of people to have. And certain people get a high on them. And I feel like I will not entertain a power struggle with somebody. I will entertain advocating. And if someone's going to get loud, I promise I will be louder. But I will not be in a power struggle with you. I don't give a rat's butt if you think you're better than me or anything like that. I honestly could care less what you think of me. What I care about is that you do the right thing by the child. Okay? At the end of the day, that's all I care about because believe me, I could care less what the school team thinks of me. Okay? That's not what I'm there for. I'm not there to make friends. I'm not there to find somebody that I'm going to hang out with and talk on the phone with and go to the movies with and anything else. I am there for one purpose and one purpose only. And, that's one thing that any advocate has to keep in mind is, like one of my parents said, the one advocate, oh, I've never pissed anybody off. Well, then you're not doing your job. That's number one, because there's no way that you can be an advocate and not piss somebody off. And, then on top of that, you have to be able to stand your ground, and in all honesty, if school systems worked like school systems did today in the meeting that I was in today, I would never raise my voice ever. It would be amazing. And I mean, it was so relaxing. It was super, easy. I actually liked the team. They were a little bit in shock at the fact that, how quick I was to come back, how much I was talking about reading, how much I was talking about math, how the child needed direct instruction, how the child needed to have, I was open to Wilson, Orton Gillingham, just a flat old, structured literacy, and aligned with the science of reading, which the science of reading has explicit instruction in how that's supposed to run. I immediately took this child off of Fontes and Pinnell. That is the worst of the worst of the worst. If your child is on Fontes and Pinnell, on BAS or DRA, get them the heck off that system. All right? Completely off that system. I don't care what you have to do. The main thing, though, to keep in mind is, we all want to just get along and it to be super easy. And what's unfortunate is in most circumstances, things aren't like they were for me today. God, I wish they were. It was such a breath of fresh air. And, the team was open and, she even suggested, the fact that, because I said, hey, in the next meeting, because we had to finish up some things and get, set with evaluations that they're going to do over the summer, which is so cool of them. It's like, why be such hard asses when you could just get along and work with the parent? I mean, how hard is that to actually want to put yourself out there and to work together, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. And, things would be a lot less stressful and a lot more calm and, put together if that power struggle of who has control broke apart, because I'm not going to always be there. I mean, I know my parents say, oh, you're coming to every IEP with me, but I may not always be there. So at the end of the day, you need to get along with the parent, but at the same time, I'm teaching the parent to not put up with your shit, And so you need to come to a point, like for school systems, I'm talking to you, where you can back the heck off. I get the bureaucracy of it. I get it. But when it comes to kids, unless you do the right thing, plan on a fight. And those parents that you think that you can run over, and the parents that, you think that don't know any better, they're going to learn. And there does come a time where it's going to be a shock to your system when they come back at you. Because I can't tell you how many. I work with a lot of Spanish families, all right? And, part of that's in my background. And, in my mind, I'm like, how dare the school system think that because of a language barrier that they don't know anything? Are you crazy? And, it's complete discrimination. And it's very unfortunate, It's disgusting, honestly. And, yeah, we learn and we never forget. What state was what? Oh, here, mine. It was in mine. Right up the street. And so, I just hope school systems change their attitudes. All right? And please know that all you're doing when you bring in attorney, bring them into my meeting. I don't care. Bring it on. I am in no way, shape, or form scared of an attorney. I'm not scared of their little cease and desist letters. I'm not scared of what they have to say. Bring it on. But what bothers me is the fact that again, I'm not going to always be in the picture. You're breaking down the relationship with the parent. And that is what's not cool. I'm not a threat to you. I'm only making you do what's needed and appropriate for the child. That's not a threat. That is doing what's right. Per idea. And most state laws. Yeah, most state laws. All state laws. So that's it for today. All right. So move forward. Don't get depressed when things don't work out the first time. All right. You have to be persistent. All right. Know how to read the team's body language. And know what your child needs going into that meeting. All right. And then don't back down. If you need to negotiate and tweak it a little, of course. I didn't ask for, this is a child that does not have to have speech. All right. So this was a situation where I was like, I'm going to back off speech because they just gave this child, complete structured literacy, said they were going to hire someone from the outside to come in to give the one-to-one direct instruction in math and reading. So am I going to push the extra speech that I want come next year right now and try to get the whole enchilada right now? Is it that important to do over the summer? No. So is the reading and direct instruction and, someone who is completely trained and not just 40 hours, is that more important? Heck yes. So sometimes you got to pick your battles and know that when you get one thing, go back to the next, you can ask for an IEP every day. They have to have an IEP every 30 days, within 30 days. You ask for an IEP, you have to have an IEP within 30 days, not over the summer. So bring them back to the table. All right, then ask for what you want after the first things in the IEP. All right, so sometimes it's okay to baby step it, but when it gets to the point where it's like, enough's enough, then that's a little bit different. All right, when things have gone on for a period of time, the child's way past behind, they're still saying no, think that they can control everything, thinking that they're providing FAPE and, getting away with it, that's different, you know? But if things are tried and different things are tried and they're trying and they're not, just saying, nope, you can't have this, you can't have this. We don't do that here. That's an interesting one lately. We don't do that here. Well, I don't know what to tell you, but you can figure it out. And, don't be afraid to fight, you don't always have to spend, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 on an attorney just because you want to fight. All right. You can easily, fight, to mediation, and most of the time it settles there. Now, do you need someone fluent in how to mediate? And, if you get a good advocate and, they've been to mediations, they have success in mediations, they've, make sure you ask them, ask to talk to references or something. And, make sure that, they're a fighter, because you don't go to mediation and just, accept the first thing and first offer that comes to the table. That's the dumbest thing you could do. You want to play hardball and you want to get the most you can possibly get. And you definitely don't want to agree to the first thing. You want to push it all the way to the end. And I've always said that a lot of times, believe it or not, in mediation, it's about who's willing to sit there the longest. Now, does that mean that, they're not going to go to due process, if you put in for due process and then settled in mediation? No. But most of the time, it's about who's going to last longer. Pretty sad. So I will always last longer. I'll sit there all day. We will, and I've told that to them. We can sit here all day, unless you want to go to due process. That's fine. We can do that too. It's totally up to you. You can't not say that, guys. You can't. Don't be scared. All right? That's what they want. So, be more mindful of putting yourself out there, even if you're a passive person. All right? And test the waters. Don't be afraid to say bring it. Don't be afraid to argue something in fear that it may not work out the way you're wanting it to work out. If you don't try, it's definitely not going to work out. But if you try and you push and persist and are consistent, then you're going to win. And again, it's never a one and done. You always are going to be going back to the table. You always are going to be negotiating. You're always going to be doing something. Things are going to change, and that's just life. And that's just IEPs as well. Okay. But keep your heads up and make sure that you, stay persistent, and make sure that you change things up in IEP meetings and are open to them and they open to you. And, hopefully things can run, smoothly. But, just expect there's always going to be conflict, because what you want, they don't want to give most of the time. And that's where conflict happens. And that's where breakdown of everything happens. And then that's where problems arise. But you try again. And, I give a couple tries. I give a couple suggestions. I give a couple ideas on how things could look, how they could work out, But at the end of the day, if you're not going to work with me, then that's where we're going to have issues. And that's when things go to another level. So the ball is always in the school's court. They always can control how I'm going to react. So if they're open to giving the child what the child needs and really have the interest of the child at heart, we're good. But don't tell me, I can't tell you how many times this happens. Do not tell me that you have the child's interest at heart and then do the opposite of what that said. All right? That drives me nuts. Save it, please. All right? Stop doing that, school systems, okay? Parents are over it. All right? Oh, we care. We care about your child so dearly. They're awesome. They, such a pleasure to have in class. It's just, she's this, she's that, he's good, he's that. That's not what I want to hear. Where's my child struggling? What are they doing? What is their strengths, meaning academically? And what are their weaknesses, meaning what am I going to make goals out of? And then what services does my child need based on the deficits and impact of disability? And once that's figured out, which is, one thing you got to look at is look at your IEPs and if your last evaluations, which they should be, are in your present levels, look at that evaluation. Tell me how much of that evaluation is in the present levels. Look at that. They nitpick what they put in. Don't let them do that. Okay? Don't let them do that. You're going to put that in, you're going to put this and this and this and this and this in too. All right? All the things that you don't want in there. All right? Because they'll put all the great stuff or the things that are minute. But the stuff that really shows where the need is, which is where they should be focused, always somehow misses the paper. Don't allow that. Look at your evaluations. Compare them to what is in your IEP. As it should state, 2020, psychoeducational, blah, what was there? These were the scores. This was what it was, in sensory, memory, working memory, visual memory, whatever it is, make sure it's there. All right. Make sure it is accurate and what the evaluation says verbatim. If it needs to be verbatim. If it needs to be certain things, make sure all the deficits are there. All right. Because if not, then how are you going to make appropriate goals? If it's not, then how are you going to dissect what is needed for a service and to prove that it is needed? You have to have objective data, not subjective. Subjective is observation. Objective is data you can hold in your hand. Here you go. Here's the data. All right, here's the daily behavior data that I took every day, put in graphical form. Here you go. 3 months worth. That is data. Not your child is doing satisfactory, blah, 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 blah. Here's the progress report. That doesn't tell me nothing. Don't even bother giving me a progress report. I don't care. That tells me nothing. I could care less about a progress report. They got to give it to you, but I could care less about a progress report. Tells me nothing. All right? What I want to see is data. Show it to me. Hand it to me. Let me feel it, touch it, look at it, and dissect it myself. Okay? So that's what's important, is being able to understand what data is, making sure that that data is in your hands. Don't let them talk about anything that they have or data that they have that you don't have. That is a violation. They need to give you, an equal team member, that information before the IEP meeting if it's going to be brought up in the IEP meeting. And they screw up with this all the time. Because they'll say something, oh, off of this data. Oh, do I have that? I always ask, even if I know I have it. All right, do I have that? Oh, okay, when did you give that to me? Oh, okay, good. Because I want them to say it. I want them to know when they gave it to me. I want them to be on it and not just be in an IEP meeting just to be a body in the IEP meeting because that's what they do all the time. You need to know about this child. You need to care about this child. You need to know that this child's a human being and not a drop-down menu. And, you need to make sure that you put them first and foremost in your decision making along with the parent. Okay? Have a great day, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.